Broadcasting from Baltimore, Maryland, home of crab cakes, Natty Boh, and The Wire, this is 5x3 Radio, where strength is for everyone. I am your host, Emily Sokolinski, owner of 5x3 Training, a strength and conditioning gym in Baltimore, Maryland, along with one of my brilliant coaches, Rebecca Fishburne. Each week, Rebecca and I will discuss the ins and outs of strength training, why there is a no one-size-fits-all approach, and why strength is so important in our daily lives. Thanks for spending some time with us today, and now, on with the show. Hi everybody, welcome back to 5x3 Radio. I'm here again with Rebecca. We introduced ourselves in the first podcast as a podcast for every man, for every woman, for the every person. And as barbell coaches, obviously the first thing that we like to do when people come to see us, either at 5x3 or with Rebecca, whether it's online or in person where she trains people outside of 5x3, they come to us because they want to get stronger and they understand that strength training is important in their lives. But what is strength training, and how does one get started with training with a barbell? So we thought today would be a great podcast to basically discuss getting started.
Begin at the beginning.
Begin at the beginning. How does one get started with barbell training? And I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca just to, get her insights as to what. Well, I guess go in. We talked a little bit about what inspired us. So maybe you want to kind of go back to what made you decide. I can talk about what made me decide, but what made you decide to start training with a barbell? And then we can get into how does one actually get started with that, and who comes to us for barbell training, and why do people come to us for barbell training?
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of talked about this before, right? But just to kind of briefly recap, barbell training was not something that I really saw as my available to me necessarily. I was a distance runner, not a strength athlete, this is back in the day where the connection between building strength and cross-country running wasn't necessarily expounded on much. But, I just got started. You should not include this because my brain just totally shut off.
Hey, I think we can. It's safe to say that everybody's brain is shutting off these days. We are into week 10 of quarantine.
Oh my God, I got pollen in my eye. I can't think about anything.
This will definitely stay in. It is week 10, everybody, of quarantine. Today is May 20th, 2020. Oh wow, 2020. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to have your brain turn off every now and then. I think that's pretty much why people hopefully are going to listen to this podcast, because they just want to turn off their brains.
Because their brains are turned off.
They want to hear just us blab on about barbell training. But
yeah.
you were saying. So getting into it.
Well, barbells was never really anything that I specifically sought out on my own. There was a little bit of a bridge where I could see myself as training with a barbell because I'd done that dancing with something similar to a bar in the group power classes. But a lot of it had to do with just my trying to figure out how I fit into the world of personal training. What did I have to offer? And investigating some of the other modalities for getting stronger that I didn't have much experience with, having friends and colleagues who were personal trainers who kind of pointed me in that direction and got me going.
Right.
And then kind of seeing the sense behind it and, deciding that was something that I could really focus on and offer to other people.
So for you, it was, you started with the power, the group power classes, right?
Yeah. And
that in those classes, body pump, Les Mills classes, it is a plastic, bar, right? Plastic weights.
The bar itself is probably 2 pounds or something.
And you do a series of exercises, pressing and rows and squats. So from there, as you became an instructor and then you became a personal trainer, I'm hearing, and tell me if I'm wrong, that the barbell training came as a result of just trying to figure out, as a personal trainer, where you fit in, like where you wanted to work, how you wanted to work with your clients. Now, was it the coaches at the various gyms that you knew who introduced you to that and said, well, this might be something that you would be interested in pursuing yourself and with your clients? Like you mentioned Craig and DB going to the Starting Strength seminar and then coming back. Was it around that time that...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it was like, I mean, it was just an investigation on my part of, what am I going to offer to clients as a personal trainer? How is what I can offer any different than what other people are trying to offer? Trying to sort of see how I fit in. And then the whole concept of stress recovery, adaptation, progressive overload, all of that's foundational to the Starting Strength approach made so much sense to me, and I didn't see that in what was being offered by a lot of other personal trainers. And I felt like that really gave a lot of value to the barbell coaching, at least what I was experiencing as barbell coaching. I mean, I know there were other trainers who would use a barbell with clients, but not in a way that was logical or progressive, just in a very random way with non-standard form. So like squatting while having conversations, and the squats are all quarter squats, and a 200 plus pound man squatting 95 pounds while venting to his trainer. And I didn't want to do that. And I also didn't want to have people laying around thinking about activating their muscles. I wanted to be able to offer something that people could see was adding value or adding strength or improving their performance in life.
Got it. Very different from my experience, and we obviously, those who listen to the podcast when we talked about our background, I came to it simply because I had exhausted every other means to help myself, to fix myself. We didn't get into any of the back issues that I had. We'll do that for another time. But as you mentioned, I came to that as a result of my back pain, and it was more of I have nothing else to lose. My husband's doing this program. He seems really into it and invested in it. Let me give it a try. And it was this simple program using the barbell, adding weights. I mean, I really had no idea still what I was doing, but it seemed like as I got into it in July of 2010, and as I was doing it 3 times a week, and we were going to the gym, and somehow I was adding weight, and he was fixing my form, and I was trying to figure things out, that by the end of August, I felt the best I'd felt in such a long time. And all I could attribute it to was the program, the strength training. Because I wasn't dancing that summer, and I wasn't teaching a lot of classes either. I don't think I was teaching my too many classes. It was the summer. But whatever I was doing, I could attribute to the barbell work that I was doing. And then into September, and then into October, and then of course we went to the seminar in November of 2010. And around that same time, Diego was kind of pushing me to open a gym. I knew I was leaving the dance studio at that point. I'd already put told them that I gave them my year's notice. I'm giving you a year to find a replacement for me. And
takes that long.
Well, I gave them that year because it took them that long to find a replacement for me. But during that time, I started back to teaching dance. So I was teaching my classes, and then at the same time, I was going to the gym and thinking about, did I want to open a dance studio or a gym? And I just came to the realization I enjoyed working with the adults at the dance studio. I was teaching a class that was, well, I'll get into that another time.
Like toddlers and tutus or something?
No, it was my bar class. I was teaching a bar class.
Oh, gotcha.
But it was a bar class that, was more of, the marketing was different and that's a whole other can of worms that I could get into.
Oh yeah, let's not go there.
We don't need to go there. But it was this I was continuing to train, and over and over in my mind was, this is it for me. This has got to be the way that I continue to work with people. I didn't want to open a dance studio. I didn't want to have a bunch of parents and children. I'd done that for 5 years. I liked working with my adults. How could I work with them in a different way? How could I work with them in this way? And the decision to open up the gym was ultimately made. I mean, I have to work with them in an environment that provides them with this equipment. And that's how I decided to open up the gym. So it was more of, look what it did for me. Holy crap, it really works. How can I get this to work for other people? How can I get women to do this? And I didn't have a 5-year plan. I didn't have a 10-year plan. I didn't have a 2-year plan. I just had this background of instructing people, teaching people, and providing them with something that I felt was good for them, right? That they wanted, and that I could provide for them in a good way. I had the background in dance. I know how to move. I know how to teach people how to move, and it took off from there. And that over the years, I definitely have gotten better as a coach and adapted to certain things and refined the population that I really like working with. Definitely in the past, 2-3 years, it's been the older population, right? The 60 plus. And really trying to figure out how to work with that population, how to get that population in the door and encourage them to get stronger.
So like when somebody comes to you or I or another strength coach, it seems like they kind of fall into 2 categories, right? Like if they're coming to a strength coach, they have obviously already recognized that there is benefit to being stronger, and they want that. Then I think it comes down to, how do you provide that for them? What modality do you use?
Exactly.
And so it seems to me like there are people, and I'm in like a commercial gym setting as well, not always specifically in a starting strength affiliate gym. So it seems to me like people who decide that they want to be stronger come at it from kind of 2 different approaches. Some people who have already determined that the barbell is the method that they want, is the means by which they want to get stronger. And some people who just sort of have a vague idea that they want to get stronger. They don't have any particular partiality to a barbell. They'd be just as happy getting stronger with a kettlebell or a dumbbell. In fact, there are some people who might have biases against a barbell, who might prefer using dumbbells and kettlebells. So who are those people that come to you initially at a starting strength affiliate gym? How do they get to the point where they've decided the barbell is the thing for me?
I think when people contact me, I usually do ask them, how'd you find out about us? Why are you here? And 99% of the time it's, well, I want to get stronger. I read that strength training is good for me, and that barbell training is going to help me get stronger. And when people come to the gym, I talk about both the programs that I have. You mentioned kettlebells and dumbbells, and I have both of that. Right at 5x3, we have our barbell program, we have our weight room, and then we have our turf area, which has our kettlebells and our dumbbells and all of my bands. And I offer a program that is more in line with a boot camp type program, right? It's more kettlebell work and dumbbell work. We're still teaching squats, we're still pressing, we're still deadlifting. We're just not using the barbell, right? We're using different tools. And I explain both programs, and I ultimately let the person decide what they're looking for. And by and large, the person has already come in either sold on they want to do barbell training because that is what they've heard is really key to building strength, because it actually has gotten a lot more attention, right, over the years, the past few years, right? A lot more attention, not just because of starting strength, just in general, right? I think it's more and more trainers and coaches are definitely reaching more of a population with that, and they're very few who kind of go, yeah, I understand, I've done that, meaning I've done the kettlebell work, I've done the dumbbell work, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't know how to do this. I want to learn how to do that. That's what I ultimately get. I never try to sell somebody on one or the other. I kind of provide the best explanation for this gets you stronger faster. This will get you stronger, but it'll make you sweaty. This is consistent. This relies on consistency. This relies on you showing up every day, the barbell work. The dumbbell and kettlebell work, you don't show up for a week, you're not going to miss too much. You don't show up for a week from squatting, you're going to have to go back. And it becomes a never-ending cycle of, kind of come and go, come and go. And the person kind of goes, yeah, I know, I've done that. I want to do the barbell work. So they've mostly sold themselves on that. Or if they haven't sold themselves on it, they want to hear my pitch as to what I think is best for them. And they hear, look, both are good. You don't need to have one or the other to start the other. And they both complement each other too. This is the program that we provide. This is what we start with people with. Squatting, pressing, benching, deadlifting, eventually chin-ups. Maybe we'll add push-ups in their program, but it's going to be a very simple program. It's going to be very effective. This program is great too if you want the conditioning. And people oftentimes will say, how do I schedule with a coach for my first session? And I think it has to do with their research. I think it has to do with the fact that there's just a lot more out there about strength training and the benefits of strength training. And they've oftentimes may have come in because their girlfriend does it, or my boyfriend does it, or I've heard that, my friend who did CrossFit. And some will come in and say, I want to get my mother started. I've been doing this and I want her to come to you because I understand that you work with older people. I mean, whatever they've heard. So that's how people find us. In your situation at your gym, because at my gym, obviously, if people come and I have you available, how do they come to you? Or do they come looking for a personal trainer or for a coach and you decide how you're going to work with them?
Yeah, it's interesting because I kind of have a couple different channels by which people find me.
Right.
And if they find me for online coaching, or they find me because they've come across my info on the Starting Strength website,
right.
Like those are the people who have a clear idea that they want to do barbell training.
Right.
They've done the research. They've read about the benefits of the barbell, why that's the most efficient and effective way to get as strong as possible, as quickly as possible. They're already sold on that. And those are the ones that usually find me on their own. And sometimes it's people who already have tried to teach themselves.
Right.
They've bought the books, they've read the descriptions, they think they've run themselves through a linear progression, but they've maybe hit a plateau, or they've done enough that they're not quite sure they've got the bar in the right position or their form is correct, and they want form checks and stick around after that. Sometimes there are people who already have familiarity with a barbell from another area. Like a lot of times, like a college athlete will have a program that their coach has given them. Sure. And sometimes the parents, or a college or high school athlete, and the parents will find me and say, look, my kid is supposed to be doing this program and my kid has no idea about form. Or my kid is one of 30 in a gym with one coach, and I don't think anyone's really paying attention. Can you go over form with my kid? So somebody who already has some introduction to barbells. Maybe it's like a CrossFit athlete who's been doing barbell stuff in a different manner. And maybe just says, I've read more about starting strength and I think I need to work on that, focus on that because my back is hurting me from what I'm doing elsewhere. So, I get people that way. But when I'm in the actual, the commercial gym and people come to me and they're like, I just want personal training, right? Some of those clients get distributed among the personal trainers evenly. So it's sort of like, well, you haven't had a person for a while, so here's the next inquiry. But whenever somebody signs up for personal training and they say their goal is to get stronger, that person generally gets channeled towards me.
Gotcha.
So just because they want to get stronger doesn't necessarily mean that they want to use a barbell.
Sure.
And I've got plenty of people who get channeled towards me who want to get stronger and are like, oh no, I don't really have any intention of using a barbell. And there's a lot of different reasons for that, I suppose. You know, a lot of times, like I was saying with me, you know, I didn't ever really see myself. I couldn't envision myself as being an individual who would use a barbell. Like growing up when I did, barbells were what the athletes used. Like, and I mean like the football players or the big athletes, not the cross-country runners. Cross-country runner, every once in a while, why don't you just go over and get on that leg extension? And that's good enough.
Right.
So the people that want to get stronger and maybe have a bias against barbells, you know, not for me, I'm not that kind of athlete, I'm too old, that looks scary, I am afraid I'm going to get hurt,
are those
whatever it is.
Are those the comments that you get when you approach them and you start talking about their first, you know, what are their goals and how you train people? Are those the kind of comments you hear? It's scary, I'm going to hurt myself, I don't feel comfortable. I mean, is that?
You know, I mean, I guess I can't say 100% that I've had people say they're scared. I definitely have had people indicate that they are concerned they'd get injured.
It's interesting because I guess, I mean, we could talk about this, but how you could get injured holding a dumbbell or holding a kettlebell.
Oh my God, you can get injured sneezing.
Right. So it's interesting, like why that bar looks so intimidating to people, and I think. Yeah.
But I think it's like we talked about, I guess before, you know, some people don't realize that there are different types of bars.
Right.
And so in their mind, they're thinking like, and I think also like a particular age of person, a particular age cohort will look at that and think, oh, that must weigh like a ton. Like in their mind, what they see all the time is, you know, Brian Shaw or whatever. And they're like, that's not me.
Well, and I think people automatically think that, oh well, if I'm going to start with barbell training, you know, they envision that she's going to throw 135 pounds on that bar and make me squat, and that's what people think too, and that's why there's so many people who warn people, I wouldn't do that if I were you. I've seen people lifting a lot of heavy weights and they hurt themselves, and they're going to make you start with. They have no idea. They're thinking because, like you said, they see pictures. They see pictures of Brian Shaw. It's just like women who see pictures of bodybuilders, female bodybuilders, and say to themselves, "I don't want to look like her. That's why I'm not going to touch."
Yeah, but there's a distinction there too between female bodybuilder and female bikini.
But they don't
physique.
But they don't. But they don't see the two, right? All they see is muscles and abs and really low body fat, and they don't look like, I don't want to look like her, and she lifts weights, i.e., I'm not going to lift weights. You know, it's that kind of that. It's that.
Yeah, and there's definitely some of that sometimes too, where people are like, well, I don't want to get bulky.
Right.
Right, and I've had that from men too.
Sure.
Like I had one guy started out, and he's so funny because he started out, he goes, I'm vain as hell. I don't want to lose my abs. And he was like laughing at himself about that. But he was like, that's how I am.
Yes.
And that's how I function. And I want to get strong, but I don't want to lose my abs. And it's like, dude, whatever. Like, let's just get you under the bar and we'll see what happens. And if you start to lose your abs and you're unhappy, we'll address that later.
And I think that, you know, you ultimately for that individual, you say, okay, well, you know, you're going to get as strong as we possibly can get you strong, given what you're willing to do, and be honest,
given
and not,
your parameters,
and not knock that. It's okay. Like if you end up only, you know, squatting 135, but you feel damn good about yourself, and you feel stronger, and your daily life is better. I don't care if you ever squat 405. I don't care if you squat 135 for the rest of your life. I mean, you have to have a trade-off. I think you have to meet people, and we talked about this, meet people where they are.
Yeah.
Right? And I think anything that gets somebody under a bar is good. And you can control that. You have the power, the option to really control that person's program.
I was going to say you as the lifter, but you as the lifter also have control over that. You give the feedback, you tell the coach, like you say, this is where I'm comfortable. And that comfort level, that line in the sand can move. Yeah. And it can change depending on what your goals are. It can be seasonal. You know, like you can say, okay, it's winter. I want to work on getting really strong, even if that means I'm going to add a little bit more weight. And then... Yeah.
And ultimately, I mean, it comes down to, Diego was talking about this, you know, why hire a trainer or a coach if you're going to tell the trainer or coach what you want? I mean, you tell them what you want. You have a goal, and the goal needs to be heard, and you, the coach, need to hear that goal and honor it and figure out a way to help that client achieve that goal. But if the client continues to say, well, this is my goal, and here's what I want you to do, well, now it becomes, well, why are you hiring me in the first place? If you already have the goal in mind and you know what you want to do, then just go ahead and do it. Because it's our job to figure out how to take that goal and create that program to help that person achieve that goal. And you said the goal can change too. The person might decide, you know what, I really like this. And God damn it, I want to have a 405 pound squat. So I'm going to... I'm going to start to eat more. My, abs be damned. And it could go the opposite, how do you, it's a fine line, and you have to find that balance. So knowing what they want, that's key, right? You talked about the starting strength devotee. You get that. I don't necessarily get that at my gym. I have people who know what starting strength is, but ultimately people come in, they want to get stronger. And they've heard good things about,
so do you get people come in mostly like by word of mouth referrals from people that are already, at your gym, and they're like, hey, my friend is doing this, or that sort of thing? Because I don't really get that.
We get that. A number of people have joined us because their friend has been doing it with us, or a coworker, or, the husband's been doing it, and now his wife wants to join.
I get some of that where it's like a spouse referral kind of a thing, but
a lot. And with women,
on my own, not at the commercial gym.
I have a lot of women at my gym. We're pretty much like, I think 60% women, 40% men, and a lot of the women who come, they've heard from other friends, let's say, who are doing this, not at my gym, but other places, that they love lifting heavy weights because it's so empowering. So there's that side of why women lift weights. Not so much men, but why women lift weights. They like it because it's building their self-confidence. They feel really empowered when they're under a bar. Not a lot of women want to do this, even though we see so many women doing it. There are many who still don't want to do it. So there's kind of like that feeling of like, I'm doing something that nobody else is doing. There's that. There's and that's been a number of cases. Others are, they've done it on their own, but they weren't making a lot of progress, so they wanted a coach. And then they told a friend of theirs who wasn't making progress either that, hey, come and get a coach. These are my coaches. So, word of mouth. I think, like I said, the internet has done a good job of getting the word out. So people are seeing strength training articles everywhere now. New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and a lot of older people are seeing it. So that's why there's so many people coming in saying, my mom, I want my aunt to start lifting weights. What can you help her with?
Yeah, that's like a cool change in the way people, I think, are perceiving barbell training, is its applicability to an older population, and not only just like to fight sarcopenia, to like fight muscular atrophy, but also to build bone density. Like I had a woman who came to me at the commercial gym, and she's she's 70. She might be 71 now, but she had a bad DEXA scan the next day. She signed up at the gym, and she was like, I've done my research. I know if I do strength training, I can build my bone density. They were like, you want Rebecca? She had no intention of doing barbell training. She just wanted to build bone density, but she was entirely open to whatever I suggested was the best means of building bone density. And I said, you want a barbell train? And I said, we've got lightweight bars. It's not like you're going to start out with, a 20 kilo, 45 pound bar. We're going to start you with 15 pound bar. We're going to build you up from there. And she saw the logic and the reason and the sense behind that. And she was all in.
And that's so important. It's the openness that people have to have. If they're open-minded, they're going to appreciate your work more, and they're going to trust you. And that's a big thing too, is the trust key, right? Trusting that I've come here and you're telling me this is right for me. I'm going to listen to you. And that scary diagnosis of, I have osteoporosis, I have osteopenia. I mean, I have countless stories of my older women who have had osteopenia, started training, and have reversed it. Those who have osteoporosis, which you can't reverse, but you can certainly stop it from, getting worse. And then those who have had, scans, and the doctor says, I don't know what you've been doing, but keep doing what you're doing, because obviously what you're doing is working, and what they're doing is strength training. I did a presentation back in January for it was at the library near me, about training older clients, older populations, and why it's so important, and listing all the different reasons. And bone density is such a big reason. I mean, dumbbells and kettlebells are great, but having a weighted bar in your hand or on your back, no matter how much it weighs, is going to start you off so much better, because your body has to support that weight, right? And I think when the older population, when they get under that bar and they start to move that way, they discover it's not as scary as they thought it was going to be. They can do it, and they start feeling a difference immediately. And when they go to the doctor and they get results back and the results are positive, well, it's only going to encourage them to continue to do more.
So that's a big piece of it too, though, is that positive reinforcement
Absolutely.
From their medical professional. And that sometimes, unfortunately, works the opposite way. If you get a doctor who doesn't understand and has some old-fashioned ideas about barbell training and gives them the idea that it's going to be too heavy for them, like someone who doesn't, a doctor who doesn't on his or her own understand what barbell training is and thinks it's, just always, a one rep max kind of situation. So that can be problematic, or not even just the barbell, but just even sometimes, with older populations or younger populations even too, if they're going to, an ill-informed doctor. I've had people who have said, oh, it's dangerous to do even a body weight squat to depth. Their doctor has told them it's going to ruin their knees, which is, of course, the exact opposite of what's happening when you're doing a low bar back squat, where you're using the hip joint for leverage. You're sparing the knees. You're building the muscles up around the knees so that they've got more cushioning and support in your daily life, more stability. So it's just unfortunate. Like, that is a piece of the equation that, I mean, you can kind of be aware of that ahead of time and talk to your trainee about that and encourage them to, hopefully they have a doctor who's got accurate information about strength training and barbell training. And I think it's becoming more common that doctors are encouraging strength training, but I think there are still some biases out there about barbells.
Absolutely. And that's the tricky subject, right? When people decide that they want to come to us, and those who have done their research, but they go see their doctor and they might tell them, I'm going to start training at this gym and this is what my coach has me doing. It's the doctor who is uneducated on that, or as you said, not informed, may very well say, well, I hope you don't hurt yourself, or, I've read about this, or when they haven't. And it's up to the individual who goes to the doctor to have done his or her own research, to be able to either hear it and then let it go in one ear and out the other because they know that it's helping them, or hear it and say, I understand your concerns, but I trust my coach, I trust myself, and obviously my results speak for themselves, with what you're seeing. So
yeah, until a person builds like their confidence and trust in their own experience. Because like initially, at least, in my experience, initially in dealing with a client who has some misleading information about strength training or particular movements from someone in a white coat, I'm always going to lose. Right. The person who has been through many years of medical school and has an expertise in health or osteo, whatever, they're definitely more knowledgeable than I am in a lot of different areas. But when it comes to a barbell and what that might offer, I mean, I'm going to think maybe I know a little bit more about the barbell. And I've had a client who came to me a while ago, like several years ago, who told me she couldn't squat. There was, she couldn't squat. Her orthopedic doctor said it was not okay for her to squat. She was going to wreck her knees. And I said, okay, well, I disagree with that. How are you going to go to the bathroom if you can't squat?
Exactly.
It's an important thing to be able to do, but I'm not going to argue with you. And so she found a different trainer to work with her. She wanted to be doing like some heavier weight things, but the other trainer, you really shouldn't be squatting. You shouldn't be doing these things. You can find a trainer who's going to feed that your broken perspective, and that, that's kind of what she sounded like she wanted. And that's what she got. And then she was upset because she was put on a very remedial training program, like lay on the mat and try and think about activating your glute med kind of a thing. And then the turning point was she went to a physical therapist because of her knee. And that physical therapist said, oh my gosh, absolutely, you should be squatting. You have to be squatting. So then it was a matter of like, there were two medical professionals giving different advice. And she'd had an experience with what don't squat meant in terms of, like her exercise experience. Didn't like that. Then felt like she had another authority figure telling her it was okay. Then she came back and was like, okay, I want to do the whole program. But it's like, if you've got information from somebody in the white coat who says, no, you can't squat, no, you can't barbell train. I mean, I don't stand a chance against that.
So I think, when we're telling people, how do you get started and what should I do? And they're unsure because they've heard all these things, right? Their doctors told them squats are bad for their knees, and a friend told them deadlifting's bad for your back, and I know somebody who blah, 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 blah. They're going to have all these people in their head. What ultimately is going to help them figure out, is this right for me? I'll tell people, just go to visit the gym. Come and see what we do. Come
and you've got a nice setup for that, because you've got people who can come in, they can say, well, I don't think I'm ready for the barbells. They can do the basic training. They can do the boot camp. They can look out the corner of their eye and see the people in the open gym and be like, oh my gosh, that woman is older than I am. That could be me.
I do very little consultations over the phone. And if I do, I ultimately say to them, look, come in and see what we do. Because if you come in and see, and I like when they come in and they're, I try to pick a time where I know it's going to be kind of busy and they're going to see different people of all ages. And especially with my older clients are there, if they come in the morning and they see my mom, I'll point out, yeah, she's 76. Yeah, she's 74 down there. How much is she deadlifting? Oh, that's 190. Yeah, she's 74. Yeah. I mean, it's a feeling of like, these people look like me. And that's the ultimate thing that I want people to see, is I want people to see people who look like them. Jay's mom, my coach's mom, looks like any 70-year-old lady walking down the street, right? And she looks fantastic. They all look great. They're alive. They're alive. You know, they're happy.
You're setting the bar.
I know. I know. I mean, but they're alive as in like they got lives to lead.
They're vibrant.
They're vibrant. They got lives to lead. You know, they got parties to go to. They got bridge games to. You know, they've got things to do. They're hustle and bustle, right? They don't have time to sit still and bemoan the fact that, oh, I'm 70. They're living their best lives now, right? And they like the camaraderie of the gym. They like seeing each other, and they like the work that they're doing. So I like people to come in and see. If they're unsure, and they see people who look like them, who are older than they are, it becomes this, oh, well, yeah, I want to do that. I can do that. Or they like the atmosphere of the gym. It's not it's not like a big box gym. There are no machines. You know, I have my little piece of cardio equipment. I have my two little spin bikes over in the corner there. It's racks. It's people walking around. There's music going. I mean, it's a feeling of, I'm not in a gym, you know, gym. You know, where people are staring at TVs. I'm here to work. And when you come here, you're going to work. You don't have there's no downtime. There's no time where, you know, you don't feel like you're doing something beneficial. You are, and you've got someone holding you accountable.
I don't know,
for it.
Emily. I could stretch my rest between sets like no one's business.
So I think that is ultimately, if people are concerned and people have been getting different messages, coming and seeing the gym in action is a way for people to kind of go, let me give it a try. Or I like what I'm seeing. I like what I'm seeing. I want to start this.
So I think that's the key. You have to give people a way to imagine themselves under the bar.
Exactly.
You have to give them a way to bust through the limit of their own imagination. Right. And you're able to do that for people visually when they come and visit the gym. For me, when I'm in the commercial gym, I don't really have that. You know, I can't say, hey, I'll do that when a client comes in or comes out. Like, I might have a client leaving and I'll say, oh, she's doing the barbell program. Yeah. That little lady.
Yeah, exactly.
So they kind of can see each other if I have them scheduled in such a way that they're back to back. Yeah. But, you know, a lot of times I'll just rely on stories. Yeah. So like I was saying, if I've got someone who comes to me and they are, oh no, my doctor says I can't, I'm not going to argue with them because I know I'm going to lose. Right. So I leave it alone. I meet them where they are, and I'll just drop stories on them. I'll tell them about my, you know, this client or someone up at 5x3, or like, hey, check out this video, you know, or you know, that kind of thing. And just helping them somehow through story, through video, through, you know, in your situation at 5x3, actually showing people ways to expand their imagination about what they are able to do. And a lot of times that's all it is. It just comes down to a self-imposed limit. And when they start to realize that it is a self-imposed limit and that they can re-envision themselves, that's when they start to become a little bit more open to it. So either that way, or sometimes just through practical experience. Like I've said this before, like if you have someone who's doing, oh, okay, you don't want to do barbells, that's fine. We'll start with a body weight squat. Okay, now hold this dumbbell and do the same thing. Now hold this heavier dumbbell. I have people get to the point where they say to me, you know what, I'm totally fine with this 25-pound squat that you've got me doing, but my arms are killing me because this dumbbell is heavy. I'm sick of holding this dumbbell. It's cumbersome. Let's try the bar. Just give it a try. And then this bar actually is 10 pounds lighter than what you were just squatting with the dumbbell, and see if it doesn't feel easier to hold it. And then sort of the light bulb goes on.
I think it's and this is going to go, I might be jumping ahead here, and then there are people who they want to get stronger, and they come for their first session, and they can't get out of the bar. Like, they're too weak to do even the 10-pound bar that we might have. Mm-hmm. So we have to start with a bar. We have to start with a box squat, and they can't even do a box squat to depth. So we have to start with a box squat that's higher than depth. Then there's that realization, oh, wow, I do need this. There might have been that hesitancy until they got there, and now it's like my first session didn't even include a bar. My first session did not even include any weight. So that person, that could go two ways, right? That can go, wow, I really do need this. I'm definitely sticking with this. Or that frustration or embarrassment even of, wow, I can't even do this. There's no way I'm going to get any better. And that's a tricky spot. And like I said, I think I'm jumping ahead to like, what can you expect in your first session? But I think there's that you don't know where you are until you actually do start it. And
but so I mean, that's interesting too, though, because that's a good point. Like, I'm talking about limits of imagination, limits of self-imposed, but there are oftentimes physical limitations, but that doesn't mean that that's a barrier. That just means that you're starting from a different place than you might have imagined. So in a way, it is, again, just envisioning yourself being able to do something different, because people a lot of times they don't realize even that they can't body weight squat to depth, that they can only body weight squat to like a high box, because they have so many ways in the regular world of masking that knowledge from themselves. They compensate by pulling up with their arms, or pushing off from the arms of the chair, or whatever else it is. And when you take those compensations, those crutches away, and you say, let me just body weight squat, and then they're like, oh, I actually can't. But that just means you're starting from a different place. That doesn't mean it isn't for you.
And I think that's important to let people know. I mean, we're talking about how does one get started, and we're talking about people who come to us and what they're looking for, and anybody listening might have one of those, oh yeah, that's me. I'm getting older, and I'm getting weaker. How can I get stronger? Your first day might be not what you're expecting, or it might be better than what you expected. Right? You might think yourself really, really weak, and you're actually not as weak as you think. You've got the potential there right away to be stronger, or you're very active and you think you're active, and someone said, yeah, but you're constantly, hurting yourself. Maybe you should get stronger. And you come and you find out you can't squat to below parallel without falling over. That's okay. I think people need to understand that that's okay. We start everybody where they are on day one, whether that's under the bar, to a box, holding a dumbbell, or squatting with a 15-pound bar. The thing that we as coaches try to do is make sure that every session, people walk away feeling very good about what they did. And that's important to us, and that should be the person's focus too. I'm going to do the best I can on day one. My coach is seeing where I am. I'm seeing where I am. People who apologize sometimes for not being strong.
This is nothing to apologize
There's
about.
no reason to apologize. I'm sorry. This is it's my job to let you know, to give you cues, to remind you. There's always that, I'm sorry you had to tell me so many times. That's my job, right? So what should people? Let's move to. We've talked about people who decide they want to come to barbell training. They've had voices in their head, but they're trying to ignore those voices, and they want to get started, and they decide that today is the day they're going to start their first session. What can people expect? What do you think? What should we tell people to expect?
I think we've talked about some of the things that we often encounter, right? People who have self-imposed limitations, ideas about what they are or aren't able to do. And this isn't specifically what happens on the first day, but there was one other thing I wanted to mention, because then you also talked about actual existing physical limitations based on strength. But you still also, like, I've had people start on the first day, and they're reasonably strong. They could do a squat to depth with weight, but they're maybe just not very coordinated. And that's another situation that sometimes comes up on the first day, which for some individuals can be frustrating.
Right.
Like for the squat in particular, the movement pattern is the low bar back squat, right? Which is the ideal squat that we're aiming for with people, because it's going to build the most strength and use the largest muscle mass and the biggest joints. Yeah.
Very large range of motion.
But it's a different movement pattern than people are used to. And some people are very good natural movers and some people are not. Just like some people coming in the first day are going to be pretty strong and some people are not. And that's just where you are when you begin. And so sometimes if someone comes in and they have trouble figuring out how to get their hips and their knees to move at the same time, at the same speed, or how to position themselves in space, or maybe they don't really have a very good idea of where they are in space at any time anyway. And that's okay too. These are all learned skills. It's a process of getting your brain and your body to communicate with each other, and maybe they haven't been doing that recently.
And I think that is the key. So letting people know, on day one, what can you expect? Well,
there's a range.
There's a range. You might have an easy time with the squat. You just might have a good body shape for squatting, right? I mean, anthropometry plays a huge role in people's ability to perform a movement well, right? So a squat in particular. People with longer legs, or taller people, or long femored people, short. Everyone's the range is going to be different. So skill is huge. Skill is number one. The very first day, the first week, the first couple weeks of training really is about learning the movement. Unless you are a born natural mover, unless you were an athlete in college, or you are a young athlete now, you might have a difficult time moving this way until the body learns the movement pattern. So it'll be a lot of skill, and once skill is mastered, or somewhat mastered, you'll still be learning, then weight can be added to the bar. It doesn't mean that you're completely hopeless. It doesn't mean that, you're never going to get there. It just means that for some, it's going to take a little time. And skill is everything. If you don't have the movement pattern correctly, you're not going to be able to add weight. That's when issues are going to occur early on, right? So just adding 5 pounds to the bar doesn't really make sense until that movement skill looks good. And that might be, and we oftentimes do add weight to the bar, right, the next session, because we've spent time with that person on day one where they're at a place where it's not so much the weight, it's the movement, and a little bit more weight may actually help them move better. The body learns how to put itself in the right position. So there's a range for day one.
And also, like for day one, I mean, sometimes it's surprising to the individual, not even just like if you have a person who's been masking their own weakness from themselves by compensating, getting up and down out of a chair, but the other end of that spectrum, like sometimes you might have someone come in who's been doing some strength training program on their own, but they're learning this new movement pattern.
Right.
And so, the role that ego plays on the first day is huge in both regards. Like either way, you got to kind of be able to leave that at the door and accept that however you move, whatever weight is on your bar, that's okay. Yeah. There's no judgment. It's just getting you started, and things are only going to improve from there. Like I have had one client ever, I think, who had some issues with that, where it was like there was an expectation of moving a certain heavy amount of weight. And usually what happens, like you've got to give a person some space in their head with a little bit lighter weight on the bar than they might be used to moving if they've been doing some weight training previously. A little bit lighter weight on the bar, so they've got enough space in their head to be able to learn a new movement pattern. And so if someone comes in and say they've been squatting 300 pounds, but they've been squatting high, well, you're not all of a sudden going to add 2-3 extra inches of depth at that same weight.
No.
Most people who have done their homework and understand the Starting Strength program and come to me and they say, oh, I've been doing this program on my own. I know my form sucks. I've got no ego about this. Take whatever weight off we need to take off. I want to get it right. I've had one person where that's been a problem. It was also a teenage boy, so that explains it.
That's it, yeah. But I think the people who come to, who want to work with a coach, they know that about themselves, right? They're coming to pay you to help them, and they trust you because of who you are, right? The credential that you have, the knowledge that you have. They know that they're going to get the service that they expect because they've done their homework, but it comes back down to comes to trust. And if the person is not willing to trust you, why are they there? So it's a decision that person has to make too. When they come, and maybe a couple sessions into it, they realize it's not for them. That's okay. It'll be easier on both parties to to walk away. Because we want people who are open-minded. I had an older woman who came at the request of her nephew. He wanted his aunt to see me, and she's active. I mean, that's what he said. But she should. I think she wants to get stronger. I'd like her to be stronger. She's 70, and she'd been going to physical therapy for her knees, and she had so many knee issues, and she didn't think the PTs were helping her in any way, and she was discouraged by the work that she had been doing with them. So on day one, I could tell right away that we weren't going to be doing the bottom up position with my hands on her hips, right? So I grabbed a box, grabbed a bumper, and had her. I taught her how to squat, and it was hard. It was extremely hard for her. I had to keep piling up a few more bumpers because she was having a hard time getting to depth. But she was so open to the idea of knees out, butt back, little bend over, and it made sense to her. And that was the coolest part, was it made sense to her. She got it. She kept saying to me, I got this. Let me try it again. Let me practice. And then she was open to the pressing, and then the deadlift. She was beautiful deadlifter. And by the time we got to deadlift, she turned to me and she said, I think I like this. I want to continue with this. And then Corona hit,
yeah.
I right away. But she was so open and so willing because she could feel a difference immediately, especially in the squat. When she did it wrong, her knees hurt her. When she did it right, everything felt perfect. So it was that learning that skill that she was determined to get. And we had, I think, 2 sessions before before everything happened. But I was so excited because when someone comes and they're open-minded, and there was nothing on her back. We're just doing body weight squats, but the light bulb that went off in her head.
Yeah, that's always fun.
Yes, because she had no expectation. She really had no idea what I was going to do with her. I said, "We're going to learn how to squat." She's like, "Okay," but it was like this. What are you asking me to do? This feels fantastic. How come nobody's told me to squat this way before? I'm like,
yeah.
So I like those kind of people, right? I like working with people who are open and willing and understand that it's going to take time. It's going to take time. So expectations. I have a couple different, people's questions that I think people should ask before they attend a first session. One should be, what are you going to tell your coach? We want to know about injuries. I always ask, any shoulder issues, hip issues, knee issues. We definitely needed to know those things. We can see that when we start to move, but having a little bit of knowledge firsthand, is going to be helpful, I think. Sometimes people will tell us midway in the session, oh yeah, well, I broke my, I had a hip fracture, last year. And you've been shoving their knees out and doing this to them, and then they tell you, something about their bodies that you're like, why didn't you tell me before? So I think we have to ask, but maybe, make sure that you give your coach enough information about, any injuries you've had in the past prior to the session, I think what people should eat before they start. Or telling your coach if you're on a keto diet or a paleo diet or if you're, you're vegetarian or vegan or whatever, because I've had so many people pass out on me.
Really?
On the first day, deadlifting.
That's interesting.
Typically. And it all
right,
has to do with what they've eaten or not eaten. So, we people come to me and people come to you to get stronger. They don't come to us for nutrition advice, but that is, I think, part that definitely we have to let people know that it is important to eat before a training session, and carbohydrates are not your enemy.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something that I think coaches should know, not just about injuries, but hey, I just started keto, or this is what I've been doing for the past week before I started working with you, because that's going to help us manage your training session too. And that's something I don't
I've not ever really
ask.
had any issues with anybody on the first day with like passing out. I don't know if it's like time of day that I'm working with them or the type of person. Like there's one individual that I work with who sometimes has issues with dizziness, but that's got more to do with a medication. Mm-hmm. But like back when I was teaching group fitness, I'd get that a lot. Mm-hmm. I'd get that a lot because I'd teach like a 6 a.m. boot camp, and people who were like very concerned about they wanted to lose weight would come in not having eaten breakfast.
Right.
They wanted to lose weight, but they probably had a bottle of wine themselves the night before, and then not had enough water in the morning and no breakfast because they're trying to lose weight.
Right.
And then do burpees.
Yeah.
Up and down and jump and then pass out.
Yeah, I mean, it usually didn't occur until like the deadlifts.
Yeah.
That's when all of a sudden people were getting dizzy, and I'm shoving candy in their mouth, and then I ask, well, what did you eat today? Oh, I ate lunch at noon, and it's now like 6:30 p.m. I started a keto diet, Monday, and today's like Wednesday. So it's not uncommon. It's been common for us to have that occur, and I think it's because people want to lose weight, and they start to equate losing weight and going to the gym together, and they don't take into consideration the kind of exercise that they're doing with the kind of eating that they have started, right? And although on day one your strength training, you're not sweating a lot, right? I mean, unless it's like 100 degrees in the gym. You're not really going to walk out of there being in a puddle of your own sweat. It's not that kind of work, right? So, but it's still very intense for your body if it hasn't done that before. Your CNS is working overtime, right? Your central nervous system's working because it's trying to process what you're doing. It's trying to process all the information you're getting. You're trying to learn this movement. You've got this bar on your back or in your hands, and you're thinking, and then you haven't had enough food to give you energy, so your brain's getting foggy, and next thing you know, you're dizzy and I'm telling you to sit down and giving you Twizzlers. So I think for those of us who want to start training, be open, be upfront with your coach about what you're eating too.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I mean, I can see with the deadlift where you're like, basically changing altitude, and that happens for people.
It happens during the squat. It happened to somebody on the platform at one of the gyms, one of the starting strength gyms.
Interesting. I mostly just see that as people progress, if we haven't had a conversation, if we haven't talked during rest sets about protein, carbohydrates, food, when to eat, that kind of thing. Especially as the sessions get longer, people running out of steam, or how come that set was so heavy, that kind of thing. And then when they eat enough carbs beforehand, or they eat some during their training session, they're like, oh my God, why wasn't I doing that the whole time? Yeah.
So I think that's, there's that balance, and there's that feeling for people of like, I want to lose weight. I want to go to the gym, and I need to go to the gym to lose weight. And, yes.
It's better probably to think of those as two separate enterprises.
Exactly.
They're mutually beneficial. There's symbiotic relationship between them, but think of them as two separate things.
Yeah. So I'm going to put that down as that is something that I, as your coach, if you come to me, want to know, and I probably need to start asking that too. along with the, have you had any injuries? What are your injuries? And what have you eaten today? You know, because that's the biggest issue. So I think that's going to be number one. And I want to tell people, think about that if you're going to, when you start a training session with your coach. Other questions, I listed a couple questions. You know, people might ask how long does the session last? Usually 45 to 60 minutes on your first day, right? I mean, if we're going to see somebody multiple times, at least 2 or 3 times that week, we're not going to do everything on day one. We want to see certain things on day one, right, from the person. This is our chance to just kind of see how you move, and see where we're going to progress from there. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. This is going to be forever if you decide to choose this path. Anything you want to add to that? Just for
about
for
how long the session lasts.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like, I mean,
general.
Usually the squat is going to take the longest time.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, you're not going to get everything done with squat. So usually when I'm working with someone on the first day for squat, particularly, I'll use the clock to gauge how much time I'm going to spend on that. Because depending on the person, you could spend an hour and a half on squat form on the first day, but it gets to be overload, and you're not going to be able to address everything, and it's overwhelming, and it's confusing, and it just takes practice.
Yeah, all I want to see on day one from somebody is, can they drive up with their hips? If they understand that what hip drive is, that's it for me. I don't care how much weight's on the bar. I don't care what the bar is. All I want to know is, do you understand that the knees go out, the hips go back, and you come up with your hips? If they're coming up with they keep coming up with their chest, we just have to maybe remind them for the next time that that's something I need to make sure I focus on, you know.
And it's interesting too, because like during this, coronavirus thing, like the in-person sessions, I haven't done in-person sessions getting someone started with squat forever, but I've done a couple virtual sessions with people. So like that's a little bit different, because if I'm starting with somebody virtually, I know I'm not going to get everything, but there's a longer list of big rocks that I want to be sure they're at least familiar with, because when I've been starting people virtually, then moving them to the True Coach platform, and it's much easier to have that conversation through that first virtual session and be like, don't worry about this, but here's what this means. We'll come back to this later, you know. But yeah, your big rocks the first day. Yeah. Get the back angle, move with the hips.
That's it.
Depth, if you can get there. Yeah,
exactly. If they can press, if it's if it's not an older person who has issues, limitations with their wrists or shoulders, do they know where the bar is? Can they hold the bar properly? Do they understand that the hips move first, then the bar? Maybe not, but is the bar at least going up? Do they understand where the shrug is at the top? And the deadlift, of course, can they get into the bottom position, and can they stand up and drag the bar up their legs? Great, yay! First for day one done. It comes back to the skill. It comes back to learning the exercise, and we have multiple days to do that. Someone who's coming in for a 2-hour clinic, who I'm not going to see maybe forever after that. Yeah. I need to spend as much time, and typically we'll spend at least 45 minutes to an hour on the squat. Maybe a half hour on the the bench, a half hour on the deadlift, and then if we have time for half hour on the press, half hour on the deadlift, and then maybe if we have time on the bench. Yeah. Or depending on what the person really wants, like, what's your focus? What are you here for? And they might say, I want my squat form looked at. So we might spend the whole time on that and then say, anything else? And then it becomes, well, yeah, let's take a look at my deadlift. So we can gauge, or if the person's learning it from the beginning, we really have to be mindful about how much time we spend with them. And we're going to give you, like you said, we're going to give more time to the squat and less time to some of the other lifts.
It's funny because I'm thinking about like which of the 4 main lifts that we're teaching, squat, bench press, overhead press, deadlift, which ones take the most time to teach, and how much of that has to do with an individual's familiarity with that lift ahead of time. And sometimes their familiarity with that lift ahead of time is helpful. Like bench generally doesn't take that long to teach a person. No. Bench press is probably like the one use of a barbell that I see the general personal trainer using with their general client. So people often will have some familiarity with that. So that's helpful. However, the flip side of that situation is squat is also a very commonly used exercise by personal trainers, but it's pretty much always going to be a high bar or front squat style of squatting. Right. So a much different, and people are like, are you telling me I've been doing this wrong my whole life? No, not necessarily. Right. I'm telling you were doing something different, but it was a squat. It was a different kind of squat. And like starting out with someone on the first day when they're like, you mean squat isn't one thing? It's not like one beast. No, there's several different varieties. And you've been doing a different variety than the one I would ideally like you to be doing. Right. So that actually, their familiarity with squat actually works the opposite way to their familiarity with bench, like relearning, unlearning the old markers for a high bar squat. Like, where do I look? How do I position my torso? That takes forever. That took me forever.
It may be, oftentimes teaching someone from the very beginning, someone who has never ever touched a barbell in his or her life, it is the easiest person to coach because they have no expectations.
No preconceived ideas.
Preconceived ideas. They have no idea because they've never done it before. And then when they really do squat well, like they've got a good, they're just good movers, natural movers, or their body shape is one that lends itself well to squatting well. I mean, and the praise that comes out of my mouth, they're like looking at me because I'm gushing over them. Oh my God, your squat's gorgeous. They're like, what? And they have no idea what I'm talking about. All they're hearing is so weird gorgeous. Too. That was all they hear is gorgeous, gorgeous. Like, you've got a gorgeous squat. Like, my God, and.
Well, but also like maybe what your expectations are going in, like what you've done with your ego before you walked in the door, So like you're talking about, situations you've had where people have been frustrated on the first day because they didn't live up to their own ego set expectation. Exactly. And I had that with that kid who like had expectations of lifting, I don't know, being the next strong man or something, and didn't really know where his lumbar spine was in space.
But you've also, you've experienced that. I mean, that feeling of
oh my God, yeah.
God, why can't I do this? Why can't I be this way? Why isn't this happening? And sometimes it's just the day. And
I remember one time I was like benching and it was just going so badly because I had I did something to like my ribs somehow. And so my arch on my bench was totally different and it was changing. Right. Like session to session, week to week. And the coaching that I was getting, bars too high, touch points too low, too high, and I couldn't figure it out. And it was all related to my arch changing. Right. And some days more painful than others. And like I remember Christian talked me off a ledge one day. I was just trying to Christian, I'm really frustrated. Set to set, my touch point keeps changing and people are telling me different things, right? And he's like, and I'm like trying to choke back tears. He's like, he just took a deep breath and he was like, that must be very frustrating. And I really hope we're not giving you different advice. Let's try and figure this out. And then, took a couple deep breaths and we realized it was because my arch kept changing. Right. But yeah, oh my God, that was so funny. He was just perfect that day.
I think those are the questions that I think I would have on, if I were a new person starting off, I would want my coach to know about any injuries, to know about my nutrition. I want to know how long it would last. I want to know if I'll be sore, which I'm sure I will be, and that's okay, right? It only lasts for that one time, and then things won't be as sore. Yeah. Well, and sore is not actually a product that something's working, right? Sometimes being too sore can be a problem, and be let you know that something is not working. So
that's probably a whole other conversation.
But that's a whole other conversation. How much weight will I lift on my first day? We don't know.
You don't know either.
We don't have we don't have a number in mind. You shouldn't have a number in mind. And then coming back to train, I usually encourage people to train anywhere between 2 and 3 times a week, given their schedule. You can make progress twice a week if you are consistent with your training. 3 times a week is ideal because you get more practice with the movements, and you'll be able to add weight, more frequently. But given people's schedules and busy lives, twice a week has paid off very well for people. So the consistency is the key, right? Once you start a program like this, making sure that you show up every time to train is
that's
the most
probably
important thing.
this is getting a little bit ahead of just the first session, but yeah, being consistent and being honest about what sort of time commitment you can make to it. Not ideal at all, but I had a person who up front was like, I can only do 2 days a week. I was like, okay, I can work with that. We can, that you'll make progress. She was like, for half an hour. And I was like, oh, okay.
So it's like an hour.
Let's see how this goes then. But she was consistent. She knew that was the amount of time that she had. She did it every week. She made some good progress. I mean, not as much and as quickly as would have happened if she'd been able to do 3 lifts each time. Yeah. But, she was still really pleased with herself. So
that's awesome. Yeah. I would think that, honestly, if I had someone who was training twice a week but could only do a half an hour. So the program that we teach that calls for squat, press, deadlift, squat, bench, deadlift, right? I don't know what you were doing with her, but I'm thinking I probably would do, ramping sets for the squat and then ramping sets for the press. So basically, instead of doing sets across for the lifts, just work up to a top set with both lifts. So you're doing sets, like fives all the way up and then fives all the way up. And you do squat and press on one day and bench and deadlift on another day. And I can see how that would work, very well for somebody, especially since if you're doing sets of 5 all the way up, that person's getting a lot of practice. That's not the ideal program, but is it better than not training at all? Is it better than not teaching the person at all? Absolutely not. Absolutely, it's better. People come to train, to start barbell training. It can look many different ways given your schedule. And I never turn anybody away who says, well, I can't train I can only train twice a week, or I can train 3 times a week, but it's only going to be for half an hour. I'll work with the person. I want the person in the door. So, it's my job then to figure out what's going to be the best program for this person, given their situation and given their schedule. And like you said, you put the person, as long as they are consistent, which is really the key here, they're going to make progress. So consistency is the key. That probably would be the most important thing I would tell somebody too. And I always do before any consultation ends. I said, it doesn't matter how often you train, as long as you are consistent with that training when you're here. If you're here week to week, you're going to make progress. End of story. End of story. Excellent. I'm thinking that you probably have to go. Is that right?
Yeah, I've had 3 beverages. Totally have to go. I've had 2 cups of coffee while we're talking.
Thanks for listening to 5x3 Radio with Emily and Rebecca. If you like our show and want to know more about 5x3 training, please visit us at www.5, that's F-I-V-E, the letter X, the number 3.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. To learn more about Rebecca, please visit her website, cornerstonestrengthmaryland.com. Thanks for listening and have a great week.